Well, hello there. Bonjour. I have a really interesting and special guest that I learned about through James Corbett of CorbettReport.com. Ooh la la. And on his Solutions Watch, I was keen to notice and, pleasantly watch the show he did with Vinny, aka VinCognito, Caggiano.
Right, exactly.
You're a teacher, you play a multitude of genres of music and instruments, I'm sure. Seems to be like blues, jazz, funk. Seems to be more of your bread and butter. Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, I'm sure you studied classical and everything. And yeah, just wanted to have you on and chat about music, learn more about you, see about, how you teach your students. And also I wanted to know how they, how's the youth kind of resonating with, in accordance with, the proper tones and frequencies that, we're trying to be smartening up music, right? So yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, actually, the majority of my students are older. They're not kids. I've gotten young people before. And one of my missions years ago, I had more young people, more kids as students. And one of the things I used to preach was that the idea of the blues is very, very essential to American music. All right. And I was really concerned that as we got into the 2000s, that blues was kind of drifting away from pop music. And it mostly is, but when you talk about music theory, it could get really deep and I could get really abstract. And I don't want to do that here because I want to be universal to whomever is watching. But let's just say in the blues, there is a stylistic tradition. Maybe I could demonstrate a little bit on guitar. Like that's a major chord. And that's a minor chord, all right? If I put that minor note, the note that makes it minor up high, and then if I play that minor note against a major chord, I get this. All right? That's called a sharp 9 chord, and basically it is the essence of blues, all right? And it's that one little note that changed everything in music. And what really pisses me off is that it's not studied really seriously in the academic world. I seem to have lost sound on you. Did you mute?
Oh yeah, I got my mic muted. I try to.
Oh, okay.
For sure, but I just said, wow, like yeah, and it's integral to especially anyone studying music in America because it is part of the fabric of that our more modern 500-year history or whatever.
Right. And, to make an analogy, too, of why it's important, is that in the Western system, which is now around the world, just like the English language is around the world, we've colonialized the language and the musical system. We have 12 notes that are the building blocks of everything you've heard from Bach all the way on out to, modern hip hop and reggae and country and every other thing in the world comes from 12 notes. All right. Now, at the outset, you could say, well, that's a simple idea. They're just these 12 notes that are the building blocks of everything. The idea here is kind of like, actually, I wouldn't know the analogy in science, but I'm thinking like maybe the genetic code or something is based on these building blocks, these little simple building blocks that create this complexity, right? It's the same in music. All the complexity we get in music comes from these 12 simple building blocks. Well, blues, I developed an entire theory based on this one note that happens in the blues. It's very simple again, it's a simple building block. But I managed to create an entire, actually quite sophisticated music theory behind it, which explains, I don't know how to put this in layman's terms, a lot of colorful notes that jazz musicians use without even thinking about it, okay? It just comes naturally to them. And in fact, sooner or later, my buddy Rob Mullins called me up today as a fantastic jazz pianist. I told him about my theory. He said, you know what, we got to do a podcast about the blues. And I said, you're right. Anyway, so I'm going on and on about this. Let me just kind of finish off by saying, when I was when I was teaching the kids, I tried to inject this idea of the blues into the way they were processing music. And I was literally preaching the gospel of the blues at that point. And I said, we cannot lose this. This is the essence of American music. And America will lose our identity, our musical identity, if we lose blues. So I was very worried and concerned about this, right? But then years and years later, I discovered this jazz pianist by the name of Hiromi from Japan. And this woman is a force of nature musically, and she understands blues and how to use blues and how to swing. She just absorbed all the American stuff. And then I realized, oh, it's not lost. It's just moving around the world. So that made me really happy.
Interesting. And because, I got a good friend and she's a DJ. She's got more records than I do. And I got 1,000 or something. But she loves the blues, and I forget the genre. That's more of what's popular out in Louisiana, but it stems from blues and all that.
Oh, the Cajun music. Yeah.
Mardi Gras is coming up or something like that.
Zydeco. Yeah, I love that music. Yeah.
Does that go along the same chords as blues?
Well,
it depends. I know, to generalize, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, let me make a distinction here. In the Deep South, the blues was born. There's a great movie I'd recommend called Cadillac Records. Worth seeing. It's really a great movie. Basically, it's about Leonard Chess, the guy that started the 50s and 1950s record company called Chess Records. And he was this, I think he was Polish, emigrated to the United States and became fascinated with blues. So he'd go out in the field and record all these blues artists. It's a great, great, great thing. Blues, when I talk about blues, I'm not talking about that really swampy stuff down in New Orleans, okay? Yeah, you have to think about as American history proceeded, these guys start going up to Chicago, all right, where Chicago blues was born. It began to blend with jazz principles, and Chicago blues is a little bit more sophisticated than the swampy, my baby done left me kind of stuff, So when I talk about blues, I'm really talking about the more developed, refined kind of blues that the jazz guys polished up and put into their music. And it happened. I told you, Wood. I forget what my point was going to be. So
no worries. Yeah. Take your time. I get like that sometimes as well.
Yeah, I have a tendency to go on and on about something and then forget what I started talking about. So
yeah. So I guess I'm kind of curious with and it's not about trying to prove something, but what's the base of your curiosity behind, the music theory, and what kind of truths have you kind of discovered through your investigations of it all and your experience? Obviously, you played for decades.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you heard me say to James, I gave my life to it, So there's nothing else here except me and the guitar. That's it. That's my life, I have a daughter. She lives in New York. I used to be married, but now I'm not. And so, yeah, this is, yeah. But anyway, this might be interesting to you. My history is truly bizarre in terms of music, like where I began to learn from, the different places I began to learn from. Started out loving the Beatles. I was, a kid then, but I had an older sister who was of hippie age, and she had the girls over, and they were watching the Beatles on Ed Sullivan. I'm like, I got to do that. That's what I want to do. And luckily I had some open-minded parents. They bought me a guitar. And I had a very young uncle who was more like an older brother, and he was already playing Beatles songs. So I'd watch him like a hawk. So I started out really being influenced by the pop music of the era, 60s and 70s. Then what was my next? Oh, I went when I was in high school. We had music theory 1 and 2 classes. And that's when everything sparked for me. Like, I wanted to know everything there's possibly anything you could learn about music and everything. That's what I wanted to know. So passionate about it. So I started, I bought books on classical music and stuff like that and began to study classical and decided I want to become a classical composer. But my mom and dad, kind of blue collar Long Island, couldn't afford the kind of school I wanted to go to. So they sent me to jazz school on Long Island, a commuter school. Like, I used to drive there. And all of a sudden I'm learning jazz, right? And I really had no interest in jazz at the time. It took me like many, many years to actually have an interest in jazz, but I do now. So there's that. Then I got a little older. I moved to Manhattan, and you can relate to this, as I could see from reading up on your website stuff. I became interested in mysticism and spirituality and the possibility of becoming enlightened, like achieving enlightenment. At the time, I was reading a number of books by a fellow by the name of Gurdjieff, who not many people know now. Oh, you do? You're familiar? And there was that symbol called the Enneagram. And, I became like really obsessed with the Enneagram. And when I was in jazz school, I had this friend, this guy Howard, and we began analyzing the Enneagram, anything we could. We tried to put everything on it, on an Enneagram. And we actually did some gigs in New York, and there was one of these, what do you call it, chalkboards. And we drew an Enneagram on it. And underneath we wrote, "You are this," right? So we were big into that. And then one day, my friend Howard, I'm at his place, and he has this little glossy booklet in front of him with an interesting symbol on the front. And I said, "Oh, what's that?" And he goes, "Oh, that's called the Eureka Institute." And I took the book, and I saw there were a number of Enneagrams inside. I'm like, this is it. This is what I'm looking for. This is what I'm looking for. And so I joined Eureka, right? I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's pretty kind of undercurrent now these days, but
yeah, I'm not familiar.
Yeah, I guess I'll finish this whole long story, I guess. What happened is I got into Eureka, and Eureka, I began to learn music for mysticism itself. Like,
cool.
Yeah. Oscar Chaza was the guy who developed it, was super genius. This guy was ridiculously genius, and his whole system on the Enneagram was a 9-step system, but very, very, very involved and disciplined and detailed. Yeah.
Enneagram has 9 points.
9 points. Yeah.
Yeah, and just yeah, 9 is quite the mystical number as well. Ties into a lot of things. So.
Oh, we could go into that, man. Yeah. I remember when I was in high school, I picked up a Reader's Digest, and I saw this thing. If you multiply 9 by any number and then add all the numbers across, you'll get 9. And I'm like, what? Believe it or not, when I was in trigonometry in 12th grade, high school, our teacher said we could write a final paper on any subject we'd like. And I drew a big number 9 on the cover and just went all into the properties of the number 9. I still have that essay. I remember he remarked at the end of it, he goes, "I can't believe this is actually true." And it's like, well, try it yourself. It is, So he was mind blown.
Yeah, sometimes you got to see it or do it to believe it, right? And yeah, that's a really synchro-mystic story you had of just coming across that book when you were, really.
Yeah, it was magical.
Yeah, and it reminds me of and I'm sure, you probably touched upon it in your musing music playlist on your VinCognito YouTube channel in Odyssey, I think.
Mm-hmm.
you have a video. I've been meaning to watch it, titled "Music, Magic, and Mysticism."
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, actually, I kind of forget now I'll have to watch it again. That was years ago, so I don't remember
Yeah.
what was on there. But that was because all that stuff on my website and my YouTube channel, all that early stuff is because of James Corbett.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, actually, our history is really interesting. Yeah, I should really tell you how we met, but because it's a fascinating story. It's fun. It was also kind of synchro.
Yeah, go for it if you want. I'm all ears.
Well, let me finish the train of thought here. So
yeah, sure, yeah.
I'm in Arica, and some of the Arica musicians began to see, oh, this guy's talented. Let's see if we could get him in. They had a group called Meta Music, META, Meta Music, right? And before I knew it, we were doing really cool meditation music. Like, for example, Oscar Chazo, it's kind of like chakras, but not. There were 9 different points in the body. Each were reflected by what he called an isotope, which is basically like salt or water or metal, this sort of thing. And this is like a musician's dream. At least it was my dream. For the meditation music, he gave us the key center that we had to start for each one of these 12 different points, right? But we had to interpret, like, in other words, when we did salt, we had to make the music sound like salt. Or when we did water, we had to make the music. And to me, this is like, I love stuff like this. Like, I love the challenge of that, so I had a great time. Also connected with that school, this is, again, this variegated path of music learning I got into, along with that school, they had a big, there was one of the guys in that school was a drummer, like an African drummer, right? And he was very close with a guy by the name of Babatunde Olatunji. Babatunde Olatunji was like a priest. He was like a magic dude, I could tell the stories about that guy. He was famous. He used to open up for Santana, if you remember the band Santana, and also the Grateful Dead. He would open up for them. So yeah, so I got involved in there, and I started doing African music, right? And in the meantime, I have these gigs doing punk rock at the same time. It was just really wild, like everything that I was like gathering all this stuff, Moved to LA. When I got to LA, somehow I got involved with 2 different African groups without even trying. It was kind of like I was meant to. So that's my path. I mean, I studied deep music theory, classical. I studied jazz theory very hard. And I learned all these different elements of music from different places everywhere. And so that's my whole musical history.
Wow, that's really rich and fascinating. That's really cool, Vinny.
I hope it is. I was talking a lot, so.
Oh, yeah, no worries. That's what you're here for. So, yeah, I love the fact, the correspondence of, these elements and other things, and they're allowing one to just, use their imagination and just kind of go with that flow, that intuitiveness, and whatever you currently, consciously consider towards, musical interpretation of what's in front of you, or, you know what I mean? Yeah, it's really cool.
So, you know what? I'm going to bring up a subject. You probably might be interested in it, because I did a video on it on that music playlist. It was about 432. Have you heard about 432?
Yeah, I got over 100 music mixes that I've produced in 432.
Yeah,
I got a good program for that.
Well, people have asked me, what do you think of 432? And at first I thought, oh, this is interesting, and I got into it for a minute. And then I thought a second, I thought more about it, and they said 432 is more harmonious. And I thought, wait a second. And all right, so I'm going to try to do this so it's easily understandable, okay? way back before the days of Bach, when the Greeks were developing, when Pythagoras developed the musical scale, okay, they had something called Greek modes, okay, and there were 12 of them based on, I'm sorry, there were 7 of them within one scale, but you could make 12 of them. Basically, in other words, like I could go or I could go or and so on and so on and so forth, right? So you get 12, 7 scales within one Greek mode, but you could reiterate those 12 different times based on 12 different pitches, okay? All right, so the problem here was when music progressed into the days of Johann Sebastian Bach, all right? By the way, I'm getting to the point about 432, all right? So.
No, I love the fact you're covering the basis of this, like the history. It's important for people to really understand these things, for sure. Thank you.
Yeah, well, you know, spoiler is that in that video, I actually debunked 432. But
cool.
But now I'm back on the fence about it again. So we'll talk about it.
Yeah, sure.
See, the thing is this, all right? In the days of the Greek modes, the scale was based on what nature gave us, okay? All right, so it was basically like a real scientific thing that happened, you know, that do, re, mi, fa, sol, la is based on natural things that happen. Like the way Pythagoras worked was he, like mathematics, obviously, he took a metal bar, right, and hung it and clanged it. And he thought, I wonder what that clang will sound like if I cut it exactly in half. So what he did was he got the octaves. So in other words, here's an E, and here's an E. And that the two can sing together, you know. Right? They're both E's, but in different frequency. And it's exactly half. In other words, like the frequency range, like A440, right? When you go up an octave from A440, because A880, right? So it literally is a mathematical doubling that happens. All right, so that's to show you that all this stuff came from nature, okay? But here's the problem. The piano keyboard was developed in the days of Bach, all right? And the problem here was all these 12 different keys became locked out from each other. In other words, I'll try to make this easy to understand. We'll take the note C, okay? The note C can be found in 7 different scales. And please tell me if I'm getting too abstract here, because I could just go, you know, into this stuff.
Oh, no, I love this stuff. And, you know, I think a lot of my audience does as well. So please, yeah, elaborate as much as you want, brother. Yeah.
All right, cool. All right, I have free reign to go nuts. All right, so if you take the note C, you could find the note C in the key of C, right? You could find the note. Oh, I'm going to have to think now. You could find the note C in the key of B flat. You could find the note C in the key of A flat. You could find the note C in the key of G. You can find it in F. You can find it in E flat and D flat. 7 different places you could find this note C. But the problem was, if you tune the white keys on the piano, which are the key of C, if you tune them according to the way nature gave it to us, and then you went to a different key that contained that C note would be out of tune with the C note in the key of C. It wouldn't be the same C note. So there was a problem here because we couldn't grab notes from other keys. You see what I'm getting at here? Because things became out of tune. All right, so there's an intense but really cool book by a friend of mine I met in British Columbia. His name is Rex Whaler. Rex Whaler was the guy who started Greenpeace years ago. And he was a big music theory nerd. I had no idea. I was giving his son guitar lessons. And he heard me talking theory. He goes, oh. Cool. And he wrote a book called The Story of Harmony, and it explains what I'm about to mention right now. There was a problem in that we have 12 different major keys, but none of them can interact with each other, which would make music really boring, okay? because you could only use chords from the key of C if your piano was tuned to C. You couldn't use an A flat chord because it would sound crazy out of tune, right? So this was an enigma. So in this book, I found out there's a chapter called Showdown in Jena, where Bach and other luminaries, musicologists and composers and music theorists got together to solve this problem. And they came up with the solution, which isn't a solution, called equal temperament, which is what we're listening to today. All right. The solution, it's really hard to explain all this because it's really mathy stuff. But the frequency between here and here, right, had to equal the frequency between here and here and here and here and here and here. So it came up with equal temperament. What that does is it makes the entire Western scale out of tune. The music that we think is so beautiful from Bach on up is actually out of tune compared to what nature gave us. So therefore, 432 is a moot point because we're still listening to dissonant music. And in fact, you could find on YouTube like what they call, I think they just call it natural temperament or natural tuning. And they do an A-B with equal temperament and natural temperament. And they have an oscilloscope there. And you could see it visually, like our system, you get the scrambled kind of image on the oscilloscope. But when it comes from nature, it's this beautiful thing. So we're faced with a Zen koan of sorts, right?
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting because, it's like a lot of the information people are getting, it's just seems a little half-baked or not, and that's why I appreciate you going through the history of it, because folks don't know it, the history of these things, past like the Rothschilds or, the Rockefellers, they were big on, pushing that into the mainstream media possibly, but it's like there's such an easy target to point the finger at all the time,
Yeah.
I think things are a lot more complicated than that, and the conspiratorial world just doesn't dig a lot deeper past the surface of these things. You know what I mean?
Oh, totally. I know what you mean. I'll give you an example of that. Yeah. All right. I'm a big Beatles fan. So is James Corbett. We love, and we actually did a podcast called Everything I Know About Conspiracies I Learned from the Beatles. And the point of it was to talk about all the conspiracy theories that revolved around the Beatles, aside from Paul is Dead, which is, that's like really old one. But one is that Tavistock Institute wrote all of the Beatles music. Another one is that a German fellow by the name of Theodor Adorno wrote all the Beatles music. All right.
Blanket statement, like just like that, like wow.
Right. And it just doesn't even make logical sense because this guy had to be such a super genius that he had to put a John Lennon personality in one form of writing and then a Paul McCartney personality in another, and a Georgia. In other words, the way they wrote music is distinctly different, each one of the characters in the band. Yeah. So that right off the bat didn't make sense to me. But back in the days, I've been a conspiracy theorist since I'm like 16 years old. So, I kind of, I was really disappointed to hear this because I revered this band. And then the Get Back movie came out. And you could see them working out their own material. So anyway, the point I wanted to make was this. You probably ran into it, as most people who, delve into conspiracy stuff do, an article by a guy named John Coleman called The Committee of 300. Now, me and James looked into this because we wanted to find out if Tavistock wrote their music or if Theodor Adorno wrote their music. Well, the source of that whole conspiracy theory came from one document on the internet, that John Coleman document. There's no other citation anywhere else about this. Just so he could have just been imagining, thinking, oh yeah, well, because they steered so much of the generation of the day, they must have been, but there's no proof. He just came out and said it. So you got to be really wary of stuff like that, Yeah,
well said. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. I love so much of James's investigations and overall reporting and all that. And he does a lot of stuff. He does what is it, New World Next Week with
James Pilato.
Yeah, and he's a cool DJ and all that stuff. He's got his radio, so like music revolves around. It's just a part of life, It's integral within our being,
Oh yeah, absolutely, it is. It comes like I think I speculated on the podcast Ian James did, Smartening Up of Music, that the 7 chakras are actually a reflection of the 7 notes of the major scale.
Yeah, and with kind of like the codes of creation, there's that base 12 mathematics that also corresponds well with the 12 notes and some of the other things, obviously. So
let's get back to 432 for a moment. Why am I back on the fence now? Why don't I feel like it's completely debunked? There's a great mathematician. Is it Vortex? I don't know if you must be familiar with vortex math at all.
A little bit.
It's really cool stuff. Really cool. There's a guy on YouTube calls himself Jain 108, Jain 108, and he deals with sacred geometry that comes from vortex math. All right. And I forget why I was going on to him. See, I warned you this is going to happen.
Does it get into like the 369? Those types of sequences?
That's all part of it. In other words, there's no number above 9 in vortex math. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. If you have a number like 432, for example, you add the numbers together, 4 and 3 and 2, and you get 9. Right?
Yeah.
If you had wound up with another a bigger number, like in the teens, like 19, you would add the 1 and the 9 together, and then so that's the way. Now the thing is, when you do vortex math, you could find all these bizarre number patterns having to do with the phi ratio and all this incredible stuff. And what they do is they plot it in a visual form. And it's this is where sacred geometry comes from. This is it. It comes really from vortex math. Guys like Randle, Carlson deal with that. So I forget where I was going with that, but
like the musical scale, doesn't the solfeggio sequence line up with Fibonacci and all that?
Oh, right. I was telling you why I'm on the fence again. This guy, Jain 108, he finds these patterns and numbers, and he believes in 432, and he explained why. And it turns out that 432, when you go through the different harmonics that come out of music, out of one tone, by the way, number of harmonics come out of it, right? And if you want, I'll explain that. But apparently, he discovered the phi ratio in multiples of 432. And we know that the phi ratio is kind of like the computer code of reality. It's like it's in everything, I have a cactus garden over here. I could see it in the cactuses, Classic one is the sunflower, the way the seeds, right? This is all based on mathematical principles, described by vortex math. So when I saw him do that, I'm like, what? Yeah. I'd rather, whether it's true or not, I'd rather see it line up with the phi ratio,
Yeah. Especially aside from, the 440 hertz. I mean, what's up with the 444? And 12 goes into that, 12 goes into 432 as well. So,
yeah, in fact, I think in Mozart's time they tuned to 444.
Huh. That's a cool triple digit sequence.
Yeah, but it's funny you brought that up because, those synchronicity numbers, triple numbers that come up, angel, they call them angel numbers. Yeah, I've been hitting on 444 all week. So that you brought it up.
That's cool. Fuck yeah. Yeah, I love that sequence. Sometimes it used to haunt me sometimes. Waking up at 4 a.m, 4:14, 4.
Oh yeah. It's really wild. It's really wild. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
how about what do we do with it? How do we interpret it, make some use of it, right? So
Yeah, well, that's the problem. You get on the internet and go, what does 444 mean? Your angels are telling you that. Well, I'm like, how do you know that?
yeah, no. Yeah, that's why it's like I love to get, a lot of different angles of things and kind of like, all right, what resonates? What's going to be the most logical? You might be familiar with, the trivium process to really run it through the truth discovery method and
right.
all these things, so.
On this count, I would like to, no pun intended, I would like to bring up Robert Edward Grant, who, if you haven't heard of, the guy is another incredible genius. He's all over YouTube. You can find him. Robert Edward Grant is he calls himself a polymath. A polymath is somebody who's like smart in like a million different areas, Anyway, Robert Edward Grant became interested in 432. But remember earlier I was talking about equal temperament, the temperament of the scale? Bach didn't like the solution. So he found his own way. I could go into the technicality of it, but it's really hard. So let's just say he used to tweak his piano the way he liked the sound, right, for his pieces. So Robert Edward Grant not only messed with 432, but he came up with a temperament called precise temperament. Totally different temperament system than equal, okay? And you can find on his YouTube channel, YouTube channel, it's called Now Sound, Nowsound, a bunch of Aussie guys. And they do an A-B where they took a piano tuned to 432, but standard tuning, equal temperament, and then they compared it to the precise tuning piano. And it took a minute. Like at first it sounded a little kind of offish, but then the more I listened, the more pleasing it sounded to me. Like he came up with some system that is pretty amazing, actually, So, yeah, Robert Edward Grant, he's quite a character.
Wow, that's interesting. Are you familiar with Dr. Leonard Horowitz? Because he speaks a lot about the 432 and just the differential, even 528 and other scales.
Yeah, I didn't delve into. I know his name, but I don't really know his work, to be honest. Yeah.
He's been around for quite some time, and yeah, one of the main takeaways for me, it's and yeah, it depends on how our body's just been kind of numbed and gets conditioned towards some of these distorted harmonics, possibly, right? In regards to like listening to too much of 444 or whatever. But he has a couple of videos where the articulation and the visuals just make a lot of sense in regards to just his example is imagine having that scale and like your inner ear, what's really going to be resonating with the natural harmonies of creation, rather, as opposed to something that's a little tweaked or off, right? It's kind of like driving in the car with the stereo on, AM, FM, whatever, and you kind of get that static a little bit or whatever. Things ain't coming as clear as possible, possibly,
Yeah, sure, absolutely, yeah. This is what the world is needing right now. We're in some really dark times, like really dark, and it looks like there's no end to them, So, like, what'd you call your one great work, right? What we need to, and it's happening. I don't even have to preach what we need is. It's happening already. People are coming up with alternative viewpoints, alternative theories, and we're finding each other. All right. I brought up, kind of for a sly reason, I brought up, what's his name? Randle Carlson.
Yeah, I was about to say that too.
I don't know if
a lot of great work. Yeah.
Have you heard him talk about the Thunderstorm generator?
Ooh, no, actually, no.
All right, we'll get to that. But first, I want to preface it by, you know how people who have come up with inventions, even in the 70s, some guy came up with a carburetor that could run a car on water, you know, and then the guy magically disappears, or the patent is magically brought up and buried somewhere, right? Yeah, that's a state of things, right? Well, anyway, I run into this one video. But before I go into it, you know, I want to say this first. Back in the early 2000s, I used to hang out at this really bohemian cafe. Some of the most amazing characters, you know, just like poets and art. It was like Paris 1920s, right? And I used to say to them, if you want to take down the powers that be, it's really easy. You got to find the guy who's able to create an over unity device or a free energy device, that guy that's been tinkering and found something. And what's got to happen is he should not patent it at all. He should teach his neighbor how to build one on the promise that his neighbor will teach someone else how to build one. Before you know it, people are powering their own houses and the power companies die, right? I thought this is the way to do it. Well, guess what? It's happening. All right. Randle Carlson, there's a scientist that was tinkering with this device. And I think the best, Sean Ryan's show does a great interview with Randle about it. It's worth checking out Sean Ryan. This guy came up with a device. At first, I thought it was, it's just a clean, you know, like clean air device that cleans the air, because he mostly spoke about this aspect of the invention. If you hook this thing up to a combustion engine, right? The combustion engine sends out carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, some other noxious chemicals, right? You hook this device up to it. You talk about alchemy, right? That alchemy turning lead to gold. Well, this device pumps out oxygen, pure, breathable oxygen. What happens to the carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide? Nobody knows. So it becomes transmuted, like in alchemy, into oxygen. And I thought that alone is kind of good. Imagine all the cars in the world just like putting out all this oxygen. We'd probably get giddy from it all, you know. But, you know, it's funny. He didn't really talk much about it. But at the very end of the interview, finally, Sean says to him, so its only function is to like, you know, clean out the air from combustion engine. I mean, can it be a generator unto itself? Can it make power? And he said, oh, yeah. And basically, every once in a while, you got to add some water to it. And that's it. And the machine works. So what did the guy do? I got chills when I saw this. Randle Carlson said, look, we all know about the people who invented things and then got offed, or, you know, that sort of thing. So he said, this guy got in touch with me and we agreed that he should open source it. And right now on the internet, there are plans on how to build this thing. And not only that, but major corporations, I think Toyota was interested in it. The Indian government is now retrofitting some of their ships with this thing. So we're seeing a change in the world. I get chills because I've been waiting for this. I've been waiting for like all these little pockets, you, me, and all these other people who are trying to really make a positive change. And we feel like, I feel kind of powerless. Like, you know, what's one lone guy going to do? You know, when I saw this happening, I was like, there's hope. This is wonderful.
Wow. And what's it called again?
Thunderstorm generator. You'll find it everywhere. Give me 1 second. Alternative science. There's a YouTube channel called Alchemical Science. He's an Aussie, kind of hippie-ish Aussie dude who understands how it works, and he's been working with it, and he explains how to build it, you know, all this. So if this thing spreads around, like the powers that be already have no control over it. Even if they off this guy who invented it, it's out there now. Sorry, you know.
Yeah, gotta love that open source, and much praise to those that have invented these things.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's ironic, when you've told about the story when you're saying like, hey, if you want to disrupt the powers that be and all this stuff, and it's like, yes, because they love to control the power that we have to pay for out of the ass and through the nose and all that, when we could have had the real Nikola Tesla, who's been rolling in his grave since the Muskie incident with the automobile stuff. And that ain't no free energy device. That's not wireless electricity.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, the problem is money and power. That's the biggest problem humanity is facing. And I talk with a friend about this all the time. Like, we talk about the problem of money. It's a problem. Money is a problem because, like, people become too greedy, and when you start making a lot of money, you could feel powerful. The more money you make, the more power you feel. So that's problematic, because power is a very attractive thing. And look what's happened. All the people who are attracted to power in our world today are all psychopaths, just most of them, right? So
yeah, some masquerade as being charitable and this and that, even though it's like tax deductible and all that stuff. So come on now. Anyways, yeah, it's interesting seeing, even growing up, sometimes you see these underground, artists and that kind of stuff, and they make it big, and they sign the dotted line, and in regards to like possibly selling their soul and this and that, and you see them change a little bit over time and this and that, and it's beyond just like the ego boosting stuff. And yeah, they got possible handlers and things they need to abide by with their record contracts and whatnot. But yeah, money definitely does change people and their whole worldview sometimes.
Yeah, that's why it's the problem can't be addressed from on the ground. That's one thing we can't fix. We can't fix greed or the lust for power. There's no way to fix that. What needs to happen is a great awakening. That's what needs to happen. People going to the next level of awareness and realizing that hurting people to get ahead is not a good thing.
Yeah, causing any kind of harm just goes against anyone's rights.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so today you have people rewriting the world. Robert Edward Grant redoing Temperament. And we see this over and over again. People with new ideas. How do we deal with this? And the same is true in music. That it's going to change too. And I tell you what, man, when music itself changes, that's going to be the real spark that ignites the fire. Because I grew up, I was a little boy in the 60s. I saw what was happening. Rock and roll became the thing, and then the Brits came along, the Beatles came along, and all of a sudden there's this like whole community of people that, I mean, the LSD helped, but they kind of said, why do we have to follow the rules that they give us? Why can't we do something different? So.
Yeah, and that's why I love those jazz, improv, and all that stuff. Even the spoken word, freestyle, slam poetry, and all this stuff. They're just trying to like break these boundaries, because we feel oppressed and kind of like mentally shackled by the shitstem, says my good friend Mari West. I'm at visiting her. She's got a grand piano. She's a hell of a musician herself. And
awesome. Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah, and it's like, going to your point of just like these solutions, like trying to wake people up. It's like, and I love that quote that you had in your chat with James of, and I think he quoted someone else. I forget who said it, but, create music so beautifully that people come more in touch with God. Come on, like who wouldn't be inspired to, you know what I mean? And not in like the religious God type of text, but just like what I like to call that sound song frequency, manifestation, creation, vibration,
Yeah. Well, I was looking into your website. You seem interested in natural law as one of the tenets to look into. I recently saw on Rick Beato, the music pundit on YouTube. He's like a superstar on YouTube. All of his audience told him, "You got to see this band. You got to see this band." And he got so frustrated, he did a 5-minute YouTube saying, "All right, I looked at this band. Stop asking me to look at them." And he demonstrated the band. I forget the name of them. And they were dealing with microtonal music. And they were wearing these bizarre masks and just looked, I don't know, the whole thing was like, it was cringe. It was totally gross, cringe music. And you know what? Everybody in the comment section were like, "This is awesome," right? "This is incredible music." And I'm like, what are these people like? Why? Because it's out there, kind of avant-garde-ish. And, I don't know what it was. But, to me, music needs to follow natural laws as well. All right. When I was in high school, I sat down with a cello player, geek friend of mine, nerdy friend of mine, and we had that classic argument: is there really such thing as dissonance? Everything is consonant, everything is sound, everything is music. And I was arguing, no, there is dissonance and there is consonance. There is harmony and there's crappy noise. All right. There's a difference. And I talk about gravity in music. When you play a scale, the gravity is to come to that note, right? So there are natural laws in music.
Oh, wow. I've never heard it said that way. I love that. That's cool. Uh-huh.
Yeah, so I believe in harmony. I believe in beauty, that music should be the ultimate purpose of music should be to create something so beautiful that it moves your soul, it stirs you,
Hell
and
yeah.
By the way, I just want to mention this aside too. All right.
Yeah.
The laws of the universe are yin yang, right? I mean, you have dark and you have light, so we observe this. Therefore, in music, you have harmony and you have dissonance. Okay. Now,
Yeah, there's that polarity, I guess.
there's the polarity. So I don't believe in this kind of new agey music where you're just like, and it's just droning on and you're like, it's spacing out. That's great for a certain purpose. It's great for like meditation, self-reflection, that sort of thing. But music itself should have both elements balanced. It's supposed to have that. Anything you listen to that really catches your ear and you'll notice there are moments where, oh, wow, the tension's built up over here. Let's relax it now, that sort of thing.
Yeah, kind of like a good, movie soundtrack, with like a full-on orchestra.
Yeah, sure.
That's why, it had that extra level of grandeur and just, overall the epicness of it all of, Lord of the Rings, Peter Jackson.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you have that sharp cutoff sometimes when, that scene's over or the tension. Yeah. It's so magical, these aspects of music and how they apply so much to anything in life, right? Shit, it's part of creation. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. In fact, I have an assignment for you. All right. Next time you watch a movie or a TV series, listen to the music. Try to ignore the dialogue and just listen to the music that's happening throughout. All right.
Yeah. All right.
Back in the 90s, I was messing around with binaural beats and right, and brainwave frequencies, right? Theta, delta, alpha, beta. Theta was the sweet spot frequency, right? Puts you between dreaming and sleeping, between dreaming and wakefulness, right? But here's the weird thing. I'm really sensitive, man. I'm very attuned to sound. And I was watching a series last night. It was a Stephen King thing. And what was it called? The Outsider. And it's, typical horror thing, right? I'm listening to the music and I'm feeling like the music is hypnotizing me right now. Like it's grabbed my brain and it's putting me into a state. And I realize, oh, wait a second. These are theta wave frequencies, So composers are now using them. All right. But it's not necessarily a good thing, because if there's some sort of subliminal crap they want to put into your head, that's the optimal state to put you in, you know?
Yeah, I think there's even like patents and things like that for televisions to be emitting certain waves, so you're just, you know, a slog on the couch and all that kind of.
It's so unimaginable to me that people like are doing stuff like this. Like, why not do something good or positive or helpful to the world instead of like try to control people all the time?
Yeah, maybe they have a hard time controlling themselves too.
Clearly.
Real quick, I want to go back to, because you know what you said about, you know, this the gravity, or even like magnetism, or I was thinking of another word, possibly like the tendency of it. Kind of, we're anticipating something, and it reminded me of that little TED Talk snippet that you guys played in James, your chat with James and all that, where the guy's in front of the audience, he's just like humming certain tones, and then he stops for a second, but the audience, you know, continues, and they, you know, hit the next chord or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. James talked to me on the side about that. He goes, you know, some people on the comment section on my website were saying, oh, they rehearsed that beforehand. They did not.
Yeah. Because what I wanted to get to with that is, you know, what you said in that conversation with James is that, you know, our brains are wired, musically wired, if you will, you know, or wired to play music. I think that's what he said.
Yeah, what I had this really nerdy guitar student who he would read, like, for pleasure on the weekends, he'd read MIT magazines, and he was very interested in acoustical science. He once explained to me how the MIT lab was able to create like this tube of sound or music, right? That if you stand 1 inch outside this thing, you can't hear anything, but as soon as you stick your head in, it's this loud music, right? They're able to focus music in a beam, which is just remarkable. He actually knew how to, I mean, I forget how, the explanation was amazing, but I forget how it works now. It was very nerdy stuff, but it was great. Anyway, in one of his forays into MIT magazine, he said to me, you know, according to brain science, the human brain was equipped for processing music from the very start. You know, now, I mean, the question is, how do they know what the start is? But whatever.
Did they, are you familiar? Did they get into like the nuts and bolts of it or anything like that? I mean, you touched on it maybe in a different context of just how, you know, we have this triune brain, and, you know, music, it seems to be integral possibly to all three parts, but especially the limbic and neocortex, I think.
Well, yeah, it actually, my buddy Matt was talking about that at the very end of the smartening up music. Yeah. Yeah, as far as the parts of the brain that get stimulated by what musically, I'm not 100% sure. I couldn't tell you with any authority. But I'll tell you this, like the neocortex is where we get our profound intellect, right? The intellectual part of ourselves. And when you listen, like, for example, scientists have discovered that the top amount of melody lines a human brain can process at the same time is 4. In other words, 4 different melodies going on at once. All right. This is the music of Bach. The music of Bach is 4-part harmony, but different melodies. You know, it's just like different melodies going on at once. And we're able to do that. If you can gear your intellect to listen to that, right? You're really training your brain in a positive way, as far as I can see. You know.
Yeah, that's what I wanted my people to hear with that, because yeah, I think, you know, I'm trying to find ways to articulate it as well, and I've done like 10 mixes kind of talking about, you know, the mind and thoughts and thinking, your thought process, how do we take back our proper self-control over our mind, and, you know, get deprogrammed from all the mind control that's out there that is kind of controlling us to do stupid, silly, unconscious things, right?
Yeah. Well, you know what, man? I'll tell you what. I'm no stranger to that, and I do stupid unconscious things all the time, right? Just recently, the power went out on my block, right? Now, I live on this computer. Like, I'm always on my computer, always, you know. If I have a YouTube going in the background while I'm making dinner or whatever, you know, whatever. I just have the damn thing going. And all of a sudden, boom, it all gets shut down, right? And I'm like, for a while, there's a kind of like, what am I going to do with myself, you know? And then my guitar was sitting there, and it's like, oh, I could play guitar. I'll play guitar. I could be playing guitar 8 hours a day instead of hanging out on the internet, okay? So once that thing got shut down, it was like, oh, yeah, okay, now I'm doing something constructive, you know, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I guess for me, thinking about just getting our mind more back in harmony, and you know, having it even go to the rhythm of one's own heartbeat. You know, if someone's looking for that rhythm of harmony, look no further, right? It's always under our nose or something, you know. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm afraid to bring this up because maybe your listeners will try to get in touch with me so I can do this for them. I can't do it anymore. It was years and years ago. But this is something based on the Enneagram. All right. And basically you have 9 points on the Enneagram, each of which can be attributed to one of the 9 celestial objects in our solar system, right? Sun, Moon, Mars, Venus, Jupiter, right? So in Eureka, I was taught like each of these planets sits on each of these 9 points on the circle. But then we also had another system called the Mentations. That was a system of 12, and it involved music. The ears was the note C, eyes was the note D flat, nose was the note D, and so on and so forth, right? Then I realized the connection to astrology. Wait. I once read in this old esoteric book that each note of our 12 notes is attributed to an astrological house. Okay. So I put all these notions together, right? And I was able to plot my birth chart on an Enneagram with music referring to 9 different colors and 9 different organs in the body, right? In a certain order dictated by the astrological houses, right? I'll tell you something here. This is really wild. One night I'm laying down next to my girlfriend. How sweet she was. She's dead asleep, and I can't sleep. I must have late night coffee or something. I can't sleep, right? So I said, you know, I might as well do that meditation that I came on. Let me just try it and see what happens. I'm picturing the different organs glowing at a certain color and frequency, and I couldn't do the tones, but because I didn't have an instrument, I couldn't play at that hour of night. But I did all the visualizations and went round and round the Enneagram over and over again. Next thing I know, I'm asleep, right? It was the one and only time that I was having a lucid dream. And it was a remarkable lucid dream because I would walk up to the characters and go, I invented you. You're not really real. And they'd smile and go, no, we're not really real. Oh, what do we got there? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's what you were referring to, yeah?
Yeah, I would say, yeah, F sharp. Yeah, I mean, I'd have to look into this because F sharp should be Libra, according to the way I was taught. So, and I think they have D major and B minor. So, yeah, this is kind of different than the one I was taught, but interesting nonetheless.
Okay. Cheers. Let me get this out of the way.
12 keys. That might be slightly referring to another aspect of music different than what I was talking about too. So, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Yes, I mean, sometimes with the astrology, people kind of just kind of improvise with certain things, and it'd be nice to get more, concrete, universal, structure of this types of information, so it's more accurate and people can actually use it for more effectively and all that.
Yeah.
If they know how to use it. All right. So we're coming up on an hour. I mean, just like with James, we can always talk on for hours and hours. But
yeah. By the way, speaking of astrology, me and James are both Virgos, so we really kind of click. Yeah. And I'm not a big astrology guy, but I believe there is a certain vibrational wavelength between people. Their sign gives them some sort of something. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, we're over an hour. I didn't know how long you wanted to keep this. I could talk for days, but
I know. Yeah. Well, hopefully this isn't the last one.
That'd be great, man. And it was
yeah.
quite an honor. I really enjoyed talking with you.
Vinny, likewise, brother. Yeah, I appreciate that.
I love what you're doing.
Really, man? Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I feel you, man, and I resonate deeply with when you said to James, it's like, I'm insulted by a lot of this whack ass music around and all that jazz, and
yeah.
And the things are more of a spectacle than the actual music, and the messages are, they're not even there half the time, or they kind of just half-assing it, and you have all these ghostwriters and in the lamestream, and we got to take it back to what you're talking about, of also countering, with the proper vibrations to these distorted harmonies.
Yeah.
I'd love for you to riff off that if you want, but also bring it back to just like the magic of music and how it can evoke the atmospheres of invisible worlds. I loved when you said that, man.
Really cool. Yeah, that reminds me of a time when I was a kid. I was like 16 and I got high. I smoked some weed. And I'm listening to my radio, the classical station. And not only they play all the really straight classical music, but this was this impressionist piece that was almost atonal. It was really kind of strange. But I remember having images in my mind, like these colors and images. I felt like I was in a kind of astral amusement park or something. It was really wild experience, So in a way, that music put me into a world, I believe that, and this is why music is dangerous, right? Because what world do people want to put you in, right? So, it's just kind of a extreme analogy. I said it to James once, but music, our system, the 12 notes just sitting there untouched, are like a beautiful woman who's totally vulnerable. And people come along and they can either rape her. Oh, wait, I don't know if that's going to be a censored word in your podcast.
I'm not worried about it. Yeah, go for it. Keep it raw, man.
Or they can treat her with delicacy, right? The point being that music is so important and it's so valuable that we needed to treat it with great respect, So, yeah.
Yeah, that's well said. I like that, because we've all been born and birthed through a mother, right? That feminine essence, don't be a motherfucker, right? With the feminine essence, that maternal divinity and all that stuff. And there's a lot of great, feminine aspects of music, and we have the yin and yang aspects of it as well.
Absolutely.
But I feel like, music for me as a man, especially growing up with like anger management issues and stuff. Yeah. Like, going back to what you said, and another, quote you said with James, it's like music is, rhythm is motivation. And again, it could be, the scale of polarity from the good to the bad, anything in between, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So keep it, balanced on the scene, right?
Right.
Right. Frequencies. Anyways, I like to be cute with that shit. So, anything you want.
And speaking of women, I mean, like, the beauty, one of the beautiful things about women is that they hear music and they immediately start dancing. They just immediately go into that. They love to dance, right? Well, it's kind of interesting when you look at the Hindu, like, Shakti who's like the goddess of the universe, and she dances, right? The universe dances. And we find that instinct in mortal women, right? Impulse to dance. I think that's really wonderful. Plus, they look great when they're doing it. So,
yeah, very true, man. Yeah,
yeah.
And so that alone, doesn't that want to inspire, both men and women to, just create the beautiful music for people to, get that dance of life going again, Yeah.
And bear in mind that beauty encompasses that analogy I give, and I don't know if I mentioned it in the podcast. There's a book I read by Tom Robbins called Jitterbug Perfume, right? And he talked about perfume, how they make perfumes. And what they do is they take this really sweet, beautiful essence of a particular flower, right? But they have to put a noxious odor inside of it for the perfume to actually achieve its fullness. That's remarkable. So what I'm saying is beautiful music needs to encompass the dark side, the dissonance as well,
Wow, yeah. It reminds me of a chat I had kind of going over like alchemical artistry and all that stuff, and you're transmuting, all the fucked up shit you've gone through in your life, but you're creating this beautiful music out of it, and inspiring and motivating people to like get out of the gutter as well, type of thing,
That's me, man. All right, like, remember James asked me about blues, and he said, yeah, you get these blues guys, and they're singing about all these awful things, but they got the big smile on their face, right? I'm like, right on. That's the deal, man. You that's the beauty. You get something out of your system, as I said in the podcast. You really, it's cathartic. It really is. To play music is a cathartic thing.
Yeah, and quite therapeutical. Yeah.
And then when you reach a state of when you're not in this like frustrated, get all this work the stuff out of my system. When you pass that, now you're just making pure music, right? I like to say, this may sound a little, I don't know, like I'm pinning a badge on myself, but I like to say that how did I used to say? I'm channeling the impulse of God through notes. All right. That's what I want to do, at least.
Yeah.
So.
No, that's a good way to put it. I don't see anything grandiose about that. It's just another way of saying kind of what I said, of just kind of like be in harmony with the frequencies of creation and all that.
Yeah.
And through your own manifestation, when you're being in accord, hitting the right chords in accordance to, natural law, universal law, the, codes of creation, the frequencies therein. And, it's just, yeah, man, it's just, how can that not inspire people, right? So,
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So, but yeah, that you could say that there are three aspects of music. There's rhythm, there's harmony, chords, and there's melody, right? But there's a fourth aspect to music, and that's texture. All right. What is texture? Well, I'm reminded of an old Sufi saying I read, to boil water, you need an intermediary, which would be a pot, right? To douse a fire, all you'd need is water. You just douse the fire with water. But to actually heat water, you need a pot, a vessel, right? That's what texture is about. In other words, I have a melody, right? Let's hear how it sounds on flute. Let's hear it sounds on a bassoon. Let's hear how it sounds on a piano, right? This is all the texture. And a good lesson in texture, by the way, which, by the way, there's a story behind this too. Maurice Ravel wrote Ravel's Bolero. It's a famous piece of music, about 15 minutes long. And he shocked his audience. This was around the same time as Igor Stravinsky, who shocked his audiences as well, but for totally different reasons. Ravel did something that was kind of verboten in classical music. He take this long melody and then a second kind of bridge melody or something, these two different melodies, and repeated them over and over and over and over. And that's the entirety of the piece. But it starts off kind of quiet, and he has it playing like with flutes and calm instruments. And then each time the melody is iterated, a new set of instruments takes over and plays it. And then a new set, and it becomes this like crescendo. By the time you get to the end, he does this beautiful modulation from one key to another key, a major third up, and it just like, whoa, this thing happens. It's like an orgasm. It really is. It's an amazing piece of music. That's texture, all right?
Yeah.
Now, what I would say is the problem with modern composers is they're obsessed with texture, all right? I'm talking about EDM guys that write everything on a computer, right? So the problem is, oh, this cool sound and that cool sound. Well, yeah, but you need to balance it out with really cool chord movement, really beautiful melody, nice, solid, danceable rhythm, which they don't have a problem with that part, but yeah.
I like that. Yeah, because 4 numerically, you know, kind of represents the structure of things and all that. And 4 can still go into 12, just as 3 can as well. But it's like getting all your corners covered, so it's balanced.
Yeah.
With all that, too much texture, man. Chill. Like, that's funny, man. I like that.
Randle Carlson started a video channel called HowTube, HOW Tube, right? And he has a series. It's called Squaring the Circle, right? And the very first video is about squaring the circle, right? Which was an old Masonic problem. I think it goes back to the Masons, right? But the problem with squaring the circle is you can't really do it, okay? Then he started talking about like the square is finite, the circle is infinite, right? That makes sense? The square is masculine, the circle is feminine, all right? He went through all these different analogies of the yin and yang thing, and it really got me thinking. In music, everything is based on either 2 or 3, which is maybe why Robert Anton Wilson went on and on about the number 23, but 2 and 3. All right, so think about it like this. I have the number 1, which could be 1 beat, right? If I divide it by 2, I get 0.5. If I divide it by 3, I get an irrational infinite decimal, 0, 3, or something like that, right? I think it's 3. So there's the infinite and the finite right there, all right?
Yeah, I had a feeling. Yeah, that's cool. I can see that.
Yeah, and it operates in music all the time. There's a principle in jazz. I used to think this was pretentious, and now I don't. There's a principle in jazz called swing, and it's a kind of rhythm, right? And the jazz guys would always say you can't write swing down on paper. And that's pretentious bullshit. It's jazz intellectualism, whatever. And then I thought about it. Wait. Swing is based on 3, and you can't divide evenly into 3. So you have all this playroom with the swing rhythm. And it's it becomes a personal thing, like how you swing as opposed to how this guy swings or that guy swings, right? It's pretty amazing. Whereas when it's based on 2, it's very solid. Dot, 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 dot. It's finite. You can cut it in half evenly.
Ooh, yeah. Okay, this is interesting because chatting with my good friend, she and her partner both play multiple instruments. Mostly piano though, especially on the guy's side. And the way he doesn't play like with that intuitive kind of just like it flows through him or from him and stuff. It's just you gotta look at the music charts and all that. But with her, it's just all just El Naturel or Bel Naturel and all that good stuff. So
yeah, if you want to
correlate with what just kind of like the masculine feminine aspects possibly, and yeah
it's very like I made the mistake when I was like back in my days when I was dating. I'd make the mistake to get into these intellectual conversations with women. You want to bore the hell out of a woman, get into an intellectual conversation with her. There's very few women that, I mean, there's some women that do are into that, but on the same token, ultimately, that's not what it's about for women. It's about process. It's really about process. So, where guys, you notice like if you're in a big group of people and there's women and there's men, the men will start going on about some like politics or, and they'll start, and the women just kind of veer off and talk amongst themselves about something else for the most part. I mean, I don't mean to generalize, I'm not saying it's always that way, but,
oh yeah, I feel you, man. No worries.
So, yeah. So, all right, but you asked me to riff on something earlier, and I forget what it was.
You did, I guess. I guess it's just that rhythm is motivation, and so I guess just how can we conclude this conversation with something that can be motivational for the folks listening, I suppose, and things like that. Just get in rhythm with your own heartbeat, damn it. No, just kidding. Not you, but others. And yeah, as a teacher, kind of, what have you noticed that, people can kind of, that's helped them find more pep in their step, purpose in life, whatever, just getting more into the groove of themselves, whatever.
Yeah. Actually, I'm not quite sure how to answer that because we're living in such a distracting society, and there's so many things that capture our attention. So I could generally say listen to great music, but what is great music? It's all up to a personal taste, right? This is, to me, it's a funny thing. Like I'm a big Beatles fan on Reddit. I'm on some Beatles subreddit, and what's the best Beatles album? Or Revolver is the best Beatles album. Then people come in, no, it's not. Rubber Soul, or it's the White Album, And I'm thinking, guys, it's all a question of taste. You like that, I like this, So, I like the idea of resolving opposites. I like that idea. And I remember one time I said something, to see if I can remember this properly. Is that right? I don't think I'm capturing it right, but I remember saying, the problem between atheists and theists is that they have to understand that in order to solve that problem, just remember that there is a God for theists and there is no God for atheists. It's just that simple. And leave it at that. Why try to convince somebody that doesn't want to believe something? I just don't see the point. So, but anyway, uplifting. I don't know what I could give you, man. Like, just
it's all good, brother.
I think for me, it's like being the truest possible person that you can possibly be, and the very idea that you have a choice whether to be a true, real you or not says a lot right there. You have a choice. Right. I watch real quick. Like I know we're going way over time.
No, it's all good. I'm not in a rush. I just want to have a smoke soon.
Yeah, I feel you. I feel you. Me too. You light up if you need to, but
I can't do it inside this here.
Oh, okay. All right. We'll let you go in a second.
Don't do it on that accord.
You look at sitcoms, right? On TV. Sitcoms. It's always this way. Somebody isn't telling the truth about something, and it creates all this tension and humor, right? And I'm thinking, wow, this could have been solved with this person at the very beginning said, you know what? Blah, 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 blah. I did this. And then, of course, the show would be over in 3 minutes then. But, but in terms of being real, the most efficient way to use your energy is to be truthful. It really is. So,
Yes, it is. Being the true AI, authentic individual. And
Oh, beautiful.
you know who Manly P. Hall is, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Happy 125th birthday was yesterday, and he talks about like the electromagnetic integrity of things and your relationships with yourself and others. Think about it: electromagnetic, electro-masculine, magnetic, feminine, and all that. And so it go. This is intertwined with just like music as well. And so if we're going to be lying to ourselves and other people, we're going to be disrupting the electromagnetic, energetic, if you will, another word for it, integrity of
Yeah.
ourselves and with others. So it's just like, yeah, honesty is the best policy, and that's kind of a nifty jingle, not just for little silly, cute purposes, but it goes a long way.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, on that theme, just to riff off that real quick.
Yeah, please.
I had a kind of a spiritual mentor that I never met in real life. We met on the internet, this guy in Sweden.
Oh, cool.
And he once said to me about magnetism, he said, thoughts are electric, emotions are magnetic. So when it comes to the manifestation, which I don't really like to touch that subject too much because it's just such a trope at this point. But
yeah, it's a little too new agey. It's watered down, rather. Yeah. Anyway.
But I will say this: the body does respond to visualization, and I have certain health problems right now. And every night I make sure to go to bed. I think about myself a few days in the future, and I picture myself feeling so good. And I actually bring up that feeling. I feel really, really good right now. And I do that as a way to actually get that to happen. And very often it works, very often. So I don't know about manifesting a toaster out of thin air. I don't think I can do that. But, I think there is something to that. So electric and magnetic, right? Emotion and thought.
Yeah, especially when you're doing that consistently and having a proper conviction of it. There's like 30 trillion cells that are listening to you all the time,
Yep.
No toaster included, right? But yeah.
Anyway, man, I think we said a lot. I just,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, this is great. Really appreciate it, Vinny.
Yeah, man, it was a great pleasure to meet you. Really great to meet you.
Yeah, likewise. I guess, plug in anything you got going on, projects for the future, where people can find you. Obviously, you're on YouTube and Odyssey, VinCognito, right?
Yeah, I don't do Odyssey anymore, really.
Okay.
I just kind of default to YouTube now.
I know, right?
But it's because they're a little more open-minded again. They're letting James on after all. So
yeah, right.
So VinCognito.com, my website. I have a band called The Blue Kind, and you can find us on Spotify. We have one album out already there, and we're this time around we're not doing CDs. We're just releasing a song at a time for our next project. We have a new song out I think it's on Spotify now, called Jacaranda. And then our next one, look for it because it's going to be really good, called Electric Abacus. And by the way, I see, get me talking, I can't stop.
No worries.
Just real quick, all right. Electric Abacus. Now, my band, I love these guys, all right? But they are total normies. They don't question a damn thing,
Oh, man.
They thought I should have gotten vaccinated, and I did.
Shit.
But the lyricist for the band, who's also a normie, he wrote Electric Abacus because of digital currency, and it was freaking him out. The idea of digital, like moving over to digital currency permanently.
Oh, yeah.
So the idea, Electric Abacus, you count your money, right? One of the lyrics is, ain't got a mattress, can't hide your money, right? Like you hide money in a mattress, right? So
I like that.
yeah. So kudos to him for actually being awake enough to write that.
Yeah, sometimes it happens gradually, sometimes in spurts or whatever, and
yeah,
it's a process.
So my YouTube channel is /VinCognito. That's you can find me on Facebook if you want. I think they just killed my fan page. It doesn't exist anymore. So I think my Facebook is also /VinCognito. That's my brand, VinCognito. So if you'll find me. Not a big deal.
Yeah, I dig that name. It's cool, man.
Thanks. It's ironic because if you look me up on Google, especially, you'll find like 25 pages on me. So I'm not incognito whatsoever.
Yeah. That's good that people can find you and your music and possible lessons. So yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. People want lessons at all. They can.
What do you teach mostly? Guitar? Other?
Yeah, guitar. Although I just got a guy from Britain who's asking about lessons for bass guitar, which is different. I could teach a little basic piano, but really I teach about how to get around in music, how to compose, how to improvise, and how to analyze music as well. That's what music theory is all about. Those 3 points.
Cool. Yeah. For beginners, intermediates, advanced?
Yeah, I mean, I do have a few beginners. I'm starting to shy away from teaching beginners, but I will do it, especially if a person has potential. But I nowadays I kind of prefer people who have a little bit of advancement. It's just more fun teaching these guys, especially if they're open. They just love, like, I'll teach them a principle and go, oh, I didn't know that. And they get really excited and they start employing it. That's exciting for a teacher, so.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah. That does sound like fun.
So.
Well, that's awesome, Vinny. We'll continue to rock on out there, and we'll try to, create more of a free world to rock up in it.
It's going to happen. You take my word. It's going to happen. I think things are going to get a little bit worse, but I think what's up ahead is going to be a positive change for the world. I can't not believe that. I need to have that kind of hope.
Yeah. It's kind of like planting a seed for a tree.
Yeah.
We might not see it in our lifetime. Well, we probably for a tree, literally, we won't. But yeah, you know what I mean. Especially for it to bear fruit and all that jazz. So.
Right.
Think about the seeds. The youth.
Well, this is cool, man. The great thing about like people getting in touch with me from seeing Corbett is the people that reach out to me, they see who I am. They get a sense of who I am, and they think, oh, I like that guy. So it's always a good vibe when I meet people like you and other people. It just feels like a good vibe. Like they vibe to me. Probably it's likely I'll vibe to them as well. So, yeah, this has been great.
Yeah, right on, Vinny. Much respects out there, and take care.
Yeah, you too. Take care. Go have that smoke. Enjoy it.
Yeah.